Everyone, I'm Meghna. I work at Meta, so that's Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Really glad to be here. And morning session, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting and exciting. The cool part is I sat through the previous session, and I think a lot of themes you're going to hear again, but just from a different perspective. So to get started, these are a few of the things I'm going to talk to you about. India's digital decade, yeah? And I think it's not even decade, we are using this term techade. Because like you saw on the earlier slide, quite fascinating, from Bronze Age and Copper Age, we are now talking about the digital age, and that's truly something that we see manifesting across. So this is one big thing about the GDP and the economy. It's going to be massive. India is going to be possibly the third largest economy by 2030. So there's a huge amount of spending power that we are certainly seeing across. And within that, we are also seeing the digital economy really transforming in all possible ways. So we estimate it'll be about $1 trillion by 2030. And I'm going to share with you a couple of insights on how you can leverage various digital platforms, what are the trends that we are seeing, and how can we be far more integrated in this entire and massive transformation. Now, while all this is happening, this is not only happening in the big cities. Like you were just hearing about micro markets and smaller clusters. For example, we see about 3 in 4 new shoppers coming online last year and the past few years have actually come from the tier 2 and 3 cities of the country. The other piece is, why is this happening? I think both of those comments that you see out there. The first one is the sheer affluence. So going from the classic pyramid, we see more of a diamond shape where the middle segment is actually becoming much, much more affluent. The second thing is, say, folks like myself, we got a Facebook account in our 20s, yeah? But the people sitting here today, right now, and the younger generation, as we call it, they don't know a world where Facebook didn't even exist, right? They've grown up with it their entire lives. Now, the reality of that is you have such a massive chunk of what we call digital native consumers, shoppers, viewers. And for them, it's just a part of their lives. Kind of revealed my age by telling you when I got Facebook. The second piece is vernacular. I think this is something that we don't do enough of, because most of us are based in large cities, metros, English speaking, but vernacular is extremely powerful. So we see massive growth on content, consumption, etc., using various vernacular trends. So this is kind of a chart I purposely put up, which shows you 2021 to 2026, to say that this is something that we have anticipated over time, and it's actually panning out. So for example, if you look at the product transactors online, the number now is about maybe between 200, 250 odd million. So well on the path to this particular projection of how the ecosystem explodes. The other thing is, if you look at overall internet users in the country, people using the various meta platforms almost overlaps. So it's almost like everyone who has the internet is likely to be using a meta platform. And we can do a check on that for a second. Can any of you, all of you, put your hands up if you use WhatsApp? That's like 100% of the room. Just keep your hands up for the next question. How many of you used it this morning? Yeah, so this is like 100% overlap. So the 2 points I want to make is, one, these platforms are really used by everyone. You can repeat this in a tier 2 or tier 3 India, and you'll get the same answer. But the second thing is, it's extremely engaging as a platform. And we at Meta are trying to figure out ways in which it remains engaging, but we as business, we can help businesses like yourself use it effectively. So I think these stats are one, but the hands in the room tell you the story. The second one is on video, where video has become something that's transcended all kinds of boundaries, and short-form video, or what we call reels on Instagram. Here, I think the answer may be a bit different. How many of you watched reels recently? That's about maybe 30, 40% of the room, maybe. The point here is, for the remaining 60%, this is where your consumers are. So I would urge you as business builders to actually go and explore that medium to see what and how your consumers are acting, transacting, behaving, and engaging, and how do you leverage that power to build your own businesses. So this is some stats from Meta. We don't share India-specific data, so I'm giving you global data. We have about 3.8 billion monthly active users. And of these 3.8 billion monthly active users, where India is a very, very big market within this, I love the point on the top of the slide on sharing. Just like the little activity that we did on WhatsApp, the number there says that about 2 billion people reshare reels every day. So not only are you just watching a reel, you're actually sharing it forward. So that means that it's another very, very engaging medium. And this is a little bit dated, so our stats are further updated, and I know this number is far more significant even now. So if you look at the ways in which people are experiencing the digital ecosystem, these are some examples which are very, very powerful, telling us about how people are using these, engaging with these, and are extremely integrated into their lives. So, okay, that's all great. They're using this for entertainment and information, etc. But what does it mean for us building businesses? I think this is a very, very powerful stat, where almost 62% of people, urban users, discover products online before they buy it. And that's, I think, the beauty of this medium, wherein you have a very powerful touch point to engage with your consumers to be able to discover your products. In fact, one really nice way that I've heard it called out is, in the past, people went and found products. Yeah? So you went and said, I want to buy this product, and you went and bought that. Or you would have a broad estimate of, this is the kind, it's a wedding, and I want to go buy, a lehenga, probably in this, palette of colors, and you went on a hunt for that. But what you see today is a lot more about products finding people. So imagine your own experiences on Facebook or Instagram. And you're watching something, you're viewing something, and based on that and your interests and preferences, you see something which is very interesting to you. You may not be on a quest to find a product per se, but the product finds you on its own. And hence, this is a very interesting stat on spontaneous versus planned purchases. Yeah? So the number of spontaneous purchases are almost double those of planned purchases. And that links very well with this entire piece on what we call discovery commerce, where these products are finding people, and that enables a lot more of this spontaneous buying behavior that you see. Now, where are they finding these products? Okay, they're digital online finding products. So one of the researches that we did show us that about 74% of this discovery is happening on various different meta platforms. So you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and that's where you're engaging a lot more, receiving and then engaging a lot more with this content. The other stat's also quite interesting, where about 84% of the shoppers surveyed in this particular survey say that they saw something online and got inspired by that before they came and shopped offline. Like the speaker before me, this is your true O2O kind of experience. Like, where are your consumers, and how do you then bring them into the store, and the role that Meta has to play in doing all of this. So if we dig deeper into that, I think this is the concept that we've been hearing more recently, let's say, of web rooming, where there is about a 2x increase in web rooming. And this slide tells you that journey a bit better. I just talked about 84% of people calling out that they found something online before they shop. We also see about a 34% higher spend of people who have seen something online before they came into your store and shopped. So the amount they purchase also tends to be higher. And finally, the retention is also higher. About 70% of those people tend to come back to buy more and buy different things, etc. So it's not just a one-time interaction. It continues over the lifetime of the customer. And there are various different stats like this, which talk about how the various meta platforms allow you to do this omni-channel experience, and more importantly, measure that to see that you're able to drive O2O outcomes. And remember, these are the kind of platforms. So previously you would do a print ad, a TV ad, etc., far more singular. But many of these things are the way consumers are engaging. So it could be through stories, it can be through AR and VR filters, it can be using influencers and creators, it could be using reels. So it's an interesting challenge and an opportunity for all of us building brands to say, how do we take our brand and develop it in the language of these various new formats to engage effectively with your audiences. Now, no presentation is incomplete without AI, right? For all of you sitting in the room, I want you to check and see how many presentations don't talk about AI. The first one's a check, the second one's a check. I'm pretty certain the third one's going to be a check too. So AI, I think AI is like, ma'am before me was saying, a buzzword in the past 12, 18 months. For those of us at Meta, it's been the genesis of our organization right from the start. In fact, we have a specific core team called the Fundamental AI Research Group, headed by this person called Jan LeCun, who's kind of known as the godfather of AI. And you should go read up also about it. But for us, AI is not different from anything that we do in the advertising space. So all that content that you're seeing on any of the platforms that you use from Meta is entirely been powered by AI for a really long time. Now, those products are the core of what we mean to our consumers. And those same AI-powered engines are also powering anything that you as a business person are putting out in the form of advertising. So for us, it's not A and B. It's the same A which works across. Yeah? So to make sure that those products find people happens is entirely powered through this fantastic engine. And this touches everything we do. Yeah? So the reel that I see versus what he sees versus what you see are all going to be different, like if we open up our phones right now. But that each of them will be engaging to each of us very uniquely and very differently. And I think that's the power of AI powering pretty much everything we do. But while we talk about AI, I think it's also really important that people are very conscious about the safety, the privacy aspects, and I think that's very important to us at Meta to ensure that we meet local law and regulation, what is right for people, and that's something really top of mind for us. So that's some powerful stats about Reels. I think we just did our show of hands, where you saw the number of you who are watching Reels. And this is something which is growing at a very, very rapid pace. So the amount of time spent watching video, watching Reels, for example, 20% of that on Instagram, and again, very, very fast growing. Look at the number of Reels that are created every day. About 5 million Reels are created every day in India. So this is just a way to show you that how large this opportunity is and how engaging this opportunity is. Similarly, if we talk about messaging or using WhatsApp, I think the biggest opportunity that we can consider is while there are about 1 billion people messaging businesses, yeah, not just private communication that we do with each other, there are 1 billion people doing this. But there are two big opportunities. The first one is to be able to have conversations with your customers using AI-powered chatbots. And I think that's a great opportunity for those of you building brands, building businesses, to get off the block really quickly and create that as a competitive advantage. Because AI learns with time. So to lean in, to experiment, to figure out what your own business use cases are, and to be able to have this kind of an engagement conversation with the customers and bring them possibly even into your stores and then follow through with that. Similarly, there's a huge opportunity in driving up efficiencies that we see. So it could be in any kind of a customer service interaction space. It could be in terms of when a person buys product A and goes away and you want to get them to buy product B. How do you use this platform? And the magic really comes alive when you're able to use AI-powered chatbots to drive this entire engine. So what are opportunities for you folks as omni-channel marketers? And we just made a crisp summary of that. These are the kind of questions that we hear from folks like yourselves in terms of, hey, how can we do this? Yeah? So these are the kind of questions, and if you look at it, you'll see it probably has the kind of questions that you would also ask. For us, we think these are the 5 things that you should keep in mind. The first is, how do you use these platforms to build your brands? Because your consumers are there, and how do you learn the language to be able to create the right communication for your brand to tell your stories. The second is looking at everything about things like web rooming, viewing it online and buying it offline. What is your omni-channel strategy? And how are you using digital platforms to be able to integrate that? The third is how do you adopt digi-local strategies? Because you have a really sharp definition of this particular store in this particular area, and how do I make this work? The fourth one is personalizing this engagement with anything which is related to messaging that I just talked about. And finally, measuring these efforts. And that's the really cool part about various digital medium is you can actually measure, test, learn, and experiment, because a lot of it is going to be new for you. It's even new for us. So I think that's the measurability. So if you had to take away something, I think these are the 5 things that you should probably carry back to say, what is it that you're doing in your own businesses, and how can you do more of this? So for example, connected brands. Yeah, so we just talked about discovery and discovery commerce in a lot of detail, just right now. I'm going to touch upon the other 2 for you. So this is something that we call connected voices. And this is an example from Sephora using different platforms. And I'll explain this to you. So if you see the first visual, this is a really nice product visual of a fragrance that they were launching using the stories format. The second one is a creator or an influencer doing her own thing in terms of the experience with the fragrance, which engages with their consumers in a certain way. The third one actually is the most interesting. What they did was, and this was actually launched during the pandemic, so how do you buy a fragrance without really knowing the fragrance, right? And not actually smelling the fragrance and knowing what it is. So they figured out that by using a certain set of visual stimuli, they could make you sensorily experience it. So you look at that particular visual, it's like orange, citrusy, a bit green. So they knew the right visual cues that triggers the right memories of certain fragrances for you to feel it even without having it in front of you. Seems quite cool, actually. So what they did was they translated this into an AR filter. So you could actually download that AR filter, and when you used it, this is the kind of an output experience you got, but it also gave you a sense of what the fragrance would smell like through that visual memory associations. So this was a fantastic example of using AR to give you a product experience of something as hard to experience as a fragrance, and worked amazingly well. So this is the kind of way that you can take your product and your brand experience and build it across. And these are just some stats in terms of influencers or creators, as we call it. And if you're not yet exploring it, this is a great space to explore. India is one of the largest creator economies in the world. This is somewhat goes back to everything that I told you about Reels and how it's growing, because that's content powered by creators. And today, huge amount of shopping discovery happens through that. Huge amount of shopping influence happens before that. Creators are folks who bring you authenticity and trust as an overlay. They're able to tell you they're able to help you tell your brand message, but in a way that is the girl next door or the boy next door. So I think this is, again, these are the stats which tell you that it's actually working, and you should go and try that out too. This is an example close to home from Tanishq, where they'd used influencers to be able to tell their story for one of their recent brand launches, and some of the outputs are there for you to see. Now we do in offline retail especially, a lot of like pamphlets, inserts, circulars, etc. This is a great example of saying connected experiences. So while we do all of that in the offline or real world space, how do you translate that into formats that really work on digital? And it's a beautiful multiplier from what we have seen. For example, I wake up in the morning, I have a newspaper at home, I see something which appeals to me. Then I go into the day, I drink my coffee, rush to office in the hustle and bustle of everything all around. To be able to get that multiplier effect is catch me when I open up my Facebook or Instagram during the day, take the same key visual of whatever communication that you've put out of your brand so beautifully on that print ad, and bring that back up to me through the interaction that I will have with a digital platform during the day. And that multiplier effect then just brings it all together and gives you a much sharper overall outcome. Again, this is something that we've done with a bunch of brands across the country and works really, really beautifully. The other one is on messaging, which we just talked about. This is a cluttered slide for a reason, which is mostly to incite you to start thinking about how are you using messaging. So if you look at this funnel, I should stand somewhere where you can all see it. You can see that this is the entire funnel from discovery, consideration, purchase, post-purchase, etc. These are the kind of questions that you should be asking, and then be able to see what can your brand do to use messaging or WhatsApp to unlock that part of the funnel based on your own business outcomes. And these are, again, some stats to say that across that same funnel, while these are the questions you're asking, that these are the kind of things that brands have done and the outcomes that those actually deliver. And finally, like I said, measurement, don't take our word for it, or anything that I said just now. I think the beauty and power of all of this is to go away with a bunch of ideas and thoughts. Ask yourself the question saying, are we doing this today? And if you're not, shall we actually go and experiment? And when you experiment, make sure you measure it and use that measurement to guide your own strategy in terms of whether it's working or not. So before I sign off, the next one is a 2-minute video of a really brilliant example of a brand which has used WhatsApp really well, which I'm going to just play for you.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
People love sending WhatsApp audios during Christmas. Especially in Brazil, a huge country where many people live away from their loved ones. So, when we challenged them to draw the iconic Coca-Cola bottle using WhatsApp audios, everyone went nuts. Coca-Cola Magic Audios. People just had to send a Christmas audio to the Coca-Cola chatbot, using a personal instrument to draw the famous bottle. Their voices. Those who achieved it won amazing gifts to share with their loved ones. Sounds simple, right?
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
Not so much. Over 12 million seconds of audios were sent trying to draw the bottle, and analyzing each one in only a few seconds required loads of intelligence. The artificial one. We used thousands of clustered audio content to teach the AI to identify the waveforms and classify different shapes, sounds, and accents. 2 weeks of promotion got us more than 4 million messages sent. 100,000 new users registered in the Coca-Cola WhatsApp base. 400,000 Christmas audios sent. More than 800 gifts delivered. Now, people will never stop seeing drawings in WhatsApp audios.
So I think every time I see this one, I truly get inspired that we are only limited by our own imagination. So it's such a new medium. There's so many things we can do. I think that's a great example to say, what are all the things that you can actually think about to be able to leverage some of these platforms to make them work for your brands. So before I sign out, this is just a simple summary scorecard of everything that I talked about and like key takeaways. Again, just questions for you to think about on what you can explore, what are the kind of things that you should be doing, the kind of questions you should ask and follow through to really leverage the power of all of these platforms. I think I have a couple of minutes more, so maybe I can take questions if any of you have any questions. Anyone? Any questions? Happy to answer them. Great, so I'll give time back, so you'll come back on track on time. Thank you very much, everyone. Really pleasure being here. Thanks a lot.